For 300 years, the crown of the alien empress sat alone in the Temple of Stars. It was not just any crown. It was a lie full of strange energy, built by ancient alien hands and bound to the soul of the empire. It could choose the next ruler. It had done so many times before, but now it had stopped choosing. One by one, royal bloodlines came. Warriors, nobles, even priests stepped forward. The crown rejected them all. Some cried, some screamed, some tried to take it by force. But the crown remained silent, cold and dark, floating quietly in the air, glowing for no one. Without a ruler, the great alien empire began to fall apart. Planets stopped listening to the council. Civil wars began. Slavers and pirates grew stronger. People lost faith. Whispers spread, the crown will never shine again. But something was coming. Something no one expected, far below the royal city. Beneath the palace and temple walls, there was a dark prison place where traitors and war criminals were locked away. One day, guards dragged in a new prisoner. He wasn't an alien, he was human, dirty, bruised, and half-starved. The man was chained at the wrists and ankles. He didn't scream, he didn't beg. He just looked up once, as if trying to understand the shape of the sky above. The guards kicked him into the stone cell. "This one?" asked one of the jailers. "Yes, caught near the ruins. Claimed he wasn't a spy, but refused to speak our language. Doesn't even have a name in the records." "Then he's a ghost," the other guard said, laughing. "Let him rot." The cell door closed. Days passed, maybe weeks. The human prisoner stayed silent. He didn't eat much. He barely moved, but he watched everything. The guards, the other prisoners, the patterns on the walls. He listened. No one knew he understood. Then, one night, a group of guards came into the cell block with new orders. "Take him to the upper temple," one said. "Why?" "He's just a human," the other replied. "The crown." It reacted. "What?" "Just shut up and do it. Council wants him tested." The human was dragged through glowing halls of crystal and fire. Alien eyes watched him, some with curiosity, most with disgust, a few with fear in the great Temple of Stars. The crown floated as always, cold and still, above its sacred pedestal. The high priest stood in silence. The royal guards formed a ring. No one dared speak. The human stepped closer, and then it happened. The crown moved. It tilted slightly, as if waking from a long sleep. A soft golden light appeared around it, blinking once, then again, then glowing steadily. Gasps filled the hall. The guards lifted their weapons in shock. The priests fell to their knees. A whisper moved through the room like fire. "The crown is glowing." But how? This was a human, not of their blood, not of their kind. He must be wearing some trick. One priest shouted, "Scan him," said another. Scanners passed over his body. No alien tech. No tricks. Just one beaten, silent human. Then, something even stranger happened. The crown began to float toward him. It moved slowly, like it was pulled by gravity, but only toward him. It stopped just above his head, humming gently. The human looked up. Eyes calm, not afraid, not proud, just watching. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't bow. He didn't speak. But the crown, it shined brighter than ever before. "Stop this madness!" roared an old war general in the crowd. "He is not of royal blood. He is not even one of us. But the crown chose him," whispered the youngest. "Priest? No. The crown made a mistake." Another shouted, yet no one could deny what they saw. The crown had waited centuries. It had rejected the strongest, the wisest, the most loyal of their kind. But now, for reasons none could explain, it had chosen a human prisoner, and far across the stars, on worlds lost to chaos, people began to feel something strange in their bones. Hope, the human, stood in the center of the great hall. The crown floated above his head, glowing like a small sun. But he didn't move. He didn't smile. He didn't even know what had just happened. He didn't understand their language. He didn't know their customs. He only knew that the moment he stepped into that place, something changed around him. The alien priests whispered in fear. The royal guards looked ready to strike. One commander raised his weapon. The others held him back. He doesn't even know what the crown means. One shouted, but the crown didn't care. It stayed with the human, glowing. Waiting, they took him away, again this time. Not in chains, but under guard. Dozens of armed soldiers walked behind and in front of him. Drones watched from above. He was led to a silver chamber. Inside the palace, clean, warm, but still locked from the outside. He was given food. Alien fruit, soft bread, something like meat. He stared at the plate. Then he ate slowly, silently, as if trying to remember what food even felt like. The crown followed him. It hovered above the room, glowing softly. One alien woman, a translator, was sent in to speak with him. She wore white robes and had 4 glowing eyes. She didn't bring a weapon. She sat across from him and placed a small translator stone between them. "My name is Celtron," she said slowly. "I am here to understand who you are." The human said nothing. He just watched her, calm but alert. Celtron took a breath. "Do you know why the crown chose you?" Still, no answer. She leaned forward. "The crown has rejected every alien for 3 centuries, even those of royal blood, even me. But when you walked in, it awakened." The human looked down at his hands. Then he finally spoke. "I don't know what it wants," he said. His voice was low and quiet. "I did not ask for it." Celtron stared at him. "Then why? Why did it glow for you?" He looked her in the eyes for the first time. "I helped someone," he said slowly. "Long ago, a dying alien. I gave her water. She told me stories about a crown." Celtron's eyes widened. "She was my grandmother," she whispered. The story spread across the palace like fire. The crown chose a human. He once helped a royal bloodline. He might be the one the crown waited for, but the High Council was not pleased. "This is not a fairy tale," growled a high elder. "He is not one of us. He passed no test. He showed no loyalty. He came from the dirt. He is a prisoner, a ghost." "But the crown speaks," Celtron said. "It hasn't spoken in centuries." That night, as the human slept, he had a dream. He stood in a great desert. The sky was filled with stars, but they were moving, shifting, like eyes watching him. In front of him was the crown, floating over sand. A voice came, soft and full of pain. "You are not from this world. That is why you see clearly." He turned. A woman stood behind him, tall and glowing. Her hair was silver dust. Her skin shimmered like water. She was the last empress. "They lost their way," she whispered. "They only look for power, not truth, not kindness. You gave kindness when no one else did." The human woke up, heart pounding, and the crown above him glowed even brighter. The next morning, Atia, the council, gave him a challenge, a cruel one. "You must pass the trial of the stars," the High Elder said. "If the crown truly wants you, you will survive it." Celtron tried to stop them. "No one has passed the trial in generations. It's not a test. It's a death sentence." But the human only asked one question. "What's the point of the trial?" The elder smiled coldly. "To prove you deserve the crown." He nodded once. Then I'll go. As they prepared the ship to take him to the trial planet Saltron. Walked beside him, she held something in her hands. It was a small cloth, old and torn. My grandmother carried this, she said. She told me a human gave it to her when she was dying. She said, he saved her without asking anything in return. The human looked at it. I thought she forgot me, he whispered. Saltron shook her head. She remembered you until her last breath. He took the cloth gently, and for the first time since the crown chose him, he smiled. The ship landed on a remote moon covered in stone and shadow. Winds howled across sharp black rocks, and ancient towers stood broken and half-buried. This was the trial planet known by one name in alien history, Gravik. The place where kings were tested, and many died. The human prisoner stepped out, surrounded by guards. The glowing crown still floated above his head, steady and calm, like it trusted him. But many did not. Watching from orbit were the council, priests, and military leaders. Among them stood General Rallick, an old war hero with a face covered in scars and metal. He had fought in 5 planetary wars. His voice still made soldiers freeze. This is madness, Rallick growled. A human wears the crown like a toy. He doesn't deserve it. But the crown chose him. A priest said quietly. I don't care, Rallick snapped. If the crown is broken, I'll break him too. On Gravik, the human was told the rules. You must walk across the dead path. The guard said. The trial begins now. You have no food, no weapons, no tools. The human said nothing. He looked at the empty horizon. Sharp rocks. Thin air. No signs of life. But he stepped forward. The crown followed him. As he walked, hidden eyes watched him from the cliff's black-armored warriors. Loyal only to Rallick. They had been given secret orders. Make sure he doesn't return. They followed silently, climbing the rocks like shadows, weapons ready. One whispered, he's just a human. Weak and alone. But after 3 hours, they saw something strange. The human stopped to help a wounded beast small, with one broken leg stuck under a rock. The guards above waited for him to kill it and eat it. But he didn't. He lifted the rock gently. Slowly, he tore a piece from his sleeve and tied it around the beast's leg. Then he let it go. The beast limped away, then paused and licked his hand. The warriors didn't understand. Why waste strength on a useless animal? One said, another whispered, is he showing kindness? Further along the path, the human reached a pool of dark water, poisonous. The air around it stung his eyes. He sat beside it to rest, breathing slowly. Suddenly an alien child burst from the rocks behind him, lost, crying. She was not part of the trial. She had been hidden here, left behind after a supply raid years ago. The trial guards hadn't even known she was still alive. The human rushed to her. She was weak, her skin pale. She reached for water, but he stopped her. No, it's poison. She didn't understand his words, but she saw his eyes. She nodded. He gave her the last of the dry fruit he carried. The crown above him glowed brighter from the cliffs. The hidden warriors began to worry. This is not what we expected. Should we attack? No. Wait for the storm. As night fell, a storm rolled in, black clouds and lightning that lit up the sky. The dead path turned to chaos. Rocks fell. Winds roared. The child cried and clung to the human's leg. He lifted her into his arms and covered her with his jacket. He looked for a cave. None. Then he saw a hole between 2 large rocks, just big enough for her. He pushed her in gently, then crouched in front of it, blocking the wind with his own body. The storm hit hard. Hours later, the storm passed. The child was safe, but the human had cuts on his back and face. His clothes were torn. He could barely stand. Yet he smiled when the child stepped out and hugged him. Far above, in orbit, General Rallick watched the live footage. Why is the crown still glowing? He snapped. A council member whispered, because the crown sees him. See what? Rallick shouted. He's just a weak animal, said Saltron, standing behind him. He's something you've never been compassionate. Back on the planet, the humans saw the end of the dead path, a glowing pillar of white stone. The trial was complete. He reached it slowly, still carrying the child. The guards met him there. Some expected him to fall. Others thought he would beg for help. But he just stood tall, breathing heavily, the crown shining like fire above him. The trial of the stars is complete, one guard said softly. But not everyone was happy. That night, in a dark chamber of the palace, General Rallick gathered his loyal warriors. He survived the trial, Rallick growled. The people are calling him a sign, a miracle. A soldier nodded. They say he healed a beast, protected a child, never hurt anyone. That's the problem, Rallick said. He's not one of us. He will weaken us. He slammed his metal fist on the table. Tomorrow, we end this. The human dies. And the crown dies with him. Asterisk. The next morning, the palace was full of whispers. He survived Gravik. The crown still glows. Maybe he really is the one. The human prisoner was brought back to the capital, still carrying the alien child he had rescued. The girl wouldn't let go of his hand. And the crown. It now shined brighter than ever before. Even in daylight, it glowed like a small sun above his head. Saltron was the first to meet him when he returned. Her eyes widened as she saw the cuts on his skin, the child beside him, and the way the crown floated, quietly calm, peaceful, almost proud. You passed the dead path, she said, voice low with awe. And still, you carry a child in your arms. He said nothing. Just placed the child gently into her arms. Then he sat down, tired but not broken. But not everyone welcomed him back. High above, General Rallick paced inside the war chamber. He must not take the throne, Rallick hissed. He weakens our image. He heals instead of conquers. If the crown makes him emperor, we will be laughed at by every world we once ruled. One of his spies leaned closer. We can't kill him in public now. Too many eyes. The people watch him. Then we make it look like an accident, Rallick said coldly. The old way. He sent a message. Begin the crown's final test. Let him walk into death. The next day, the council called for a public gathering. Thousands of aliens stood in the grand courtyard, young and old, poor and rich, guards and workers. Ships hovered above, filming every moment. The High Elder raised his voice. The crown has chosen, yes, but tradition must still be followed. A final test, one last proof's required before a ruler may rise. Saltron stepped forward. What test? The Elder's eyes flickered. The chamber of memory. Gasps ran through the crowd. That place was ancient, even before the Empire. It was full of strange machines, old spirits, and visions no one could control. Many who entered never returned. Others came back, broken. It is forbidden, Saltron cried. No one has entered for 100 years. But it is the law. The Elder said, let the crown prove its final choice. The human, listening quietly, stepped forward. His body still sore, still bleeding, but his voice was calm. I'll go. The chamber of memory stood beneath the palace. It was not made by aliens. It was older, deeper. Walls of black stone, symbols no one could read. And at its center, a chair of light. The human entered alone as he sat down. The crown lowered itself and rested just above his head. Then the lights vanished, and the visions began first. He saw Earth, his old life, the war, the screams. The fire, he saw himself. Kneeling beside a dying alien woman, the same one who had once told him stories of stars, of kindness, of a crown that waited. Then the vision changed. He saw the alien empire, how it began, how it grew, how it conquered, enslaved, crushed. The crown had once chosen strong rulers, ruthless ones. But over time, it had changed. It began to wait. It began to watch. It no longer wanted a conqueror. It wanted a protector. Then he saw his own face, shining. A child held in one arm, a sword in the other. Behind him, thousands of alien children stood free, smiling, safe. Outside the chamber, everyone waited. 1 hour passed, then 2. Maybe he's gone mad, a priest said nervously. Sultron stayed silent. She stared at the door with hope. Suddenly light burst from the cracks. The door creaked open, and the human stepped out, eyes glowing, face calm. The crown floated just above his head, burning with golden fire. The people gasped. Then silence fell. Then someone dropped to one knee, then another, and another, until thousands knelt in the courtyard. Even the guards, even the priests, only. The council stood frozen, afraid. Salt Ren stepped forward, eyes filled with tears. "What did you see?" she whispered. The human looked at her softly. "I saw what your world can become." But far away, in the shadow of the war chamber, General Rallick prepared for his last move. He passed even the crown's test, a soldier said with dread. Rallick's face twisted. "Then we make war on the crown itself." "How?" The general opened a black case, revealing a forbidden weapony mind bomb. Illegal, ancient, built to destroy thoughts, not bodies. It could erase memories, melt willpower, and crush a crown's spirit. "We use this on him," Rallick said. "If we can't kill him, we'll make him forget who he is." He smiled darkly. "And then the people will forget him too." The human stood on the high platform, the golden crown glowing above him like a second sun. He was no longer just the prisoner. No one dared call him that now. People from all over the empire had gathered to see Himalayan's from war-torn colonies, survivors from broken worlds, and children who had only heard of the crown in bedtime stories, for the first time in centuries. The people had hope again. He didn't give speeches. He didn't order anyone around. He only stood quietly, letting the crown shine for them. That silence, that calm, made them trust him more than any loud ruler ever had. In the front of the crowd, standing with her head low and her hands shaking, was a young alien girl named Lyra. She was not from the royal bloodline. She was a street child, daughter of a servant, orphaned during a border war. She had cleaned palace floors once until the guards beat her for stepping too close to the temple. "Of stars, you are dirt," they told her. "The crown will never look at filth like you." But Lyra never forgot the way the crown looked. She had always believed it could see something deeper, something beyond blood or birth, and now a human wore it, and no one could deny it. Tears filled her eyes. She stepped forward. The guards moved to stop her, but the human raised a hand. They froze. Lyra walked slowly toward him, shaking with fear. Everyone watched in silence. She dropped to her knees in front of him, lowering her head to the floor. Her voice cracked. "I am nothing, but I see who you are. You didn't come here to rule. You came here to care for us. For all of us." The wind moved softly through the plaza. The crown above the human's head grew brighter. Then something incredible happened. The human knelt too. He knelt with her. Gasps rose from the crowd. This had never been done before. A ruler never bowed. But here he was on one, knee looking at a girl no one noticed before. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lyra," she whispered. "You are not nothing, Lyra," he said. "You are the reason I'm still standing." From that moment, everything changed. Dozens of people came forward. Poor, sick, old, young, every kind. One by one, they knelt. Not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. And with each bow, the crown shined brighter. Not just gold, now blue, red, violet colors that hadn't been seen in generations. Saltron, standing nearby, whispered, "The crown isn't just choosing a ruler anymore, it's waking up the whole empire." But far away, in the shadows of the palace, General Rallick watched with rage in his eyes. "He's winning their hearts," he growled. "The people love him," his soldier replied. "Even the old commanders are starting to doubt you." Rallick slammed his fist against the wall. "Then tonight, we erase him forever." He held the small black device, the mind bomb. It was no bigger than a coin, but powerful enough to wipe a man's memory clean. If it worked, the human would forget who he was. And the crown would go dark again, forever. That night, the palace lights dimmed. The human sat alone in a quiet garden, finally resting. The crown floated nearby, spinning slowly in the night air. He closed his eyes, listening to the breeze. But he wasn't alone. Rallick moved silently through the shadows, wearing a cloak that hid his heat signature. The mind bomb was ready. Just one step closer. He raised it, but before he could press the trigger, Lyra appeared. She had snuck into the garden with a stolen flower. She wanted to leave it for the human. She gasped as she saw Rallick. Their eyes locked. Rallick lunged at her, but she screamed. The human was on his feet in seconds. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Rallick threw the device. It hit the ground near the crown. It exploded. A wave of black light spread across the garden. The human fell to one knee, clutching his head. The crown flickered. Lyra screamed his name. Inside his mind, the human saw everything fading. Memories, faces, names, all disappearing. He saw the crown, floating in the dark, trying to hold on. And then, he felt a hand grab his Lyra's. Voice cut through the shadows. "Don't forget who you are. You saved me. You saved all of us. You are the one the crown chose." The light returned, the human opened his eyes, and stood. The crown burned with golden. Fire again. The attack had failed. Rallick stood frozen. The human stepped forward. "You tried to erase me, but I'm not just a memory. I'm the future." Guards rushed in. Rallick was taken. And Lyra, she stood proudly beside him, holding his hand. That night, the crown floated higher than before. And the people didn't just see a ruler. They saw a symbol, a human, a child and a crown together. And no one, not even the old warriors, could stop what was coming. Asterisk, the golden crown floated above the human's head. Brighter than ever before. It had survived the trial. It had survived the chamber of memory. Had survived the mind-bomb. Now, the people were no longer whispering. They were shouting, "Long live the crown bearer. Hope has returned. The empire has a future again." Children followed him in the streets. Old warriors bowed as he passed. Entire planets sent messages of support. Even some alien royals who once mocked him now offered their loyalty. But deep underground, far from the light, a darker fire began to burn. The last rebellion had begun. General Rallick had escaped. The guards thought he was locked away. But his loyalists had bribed a transport pilot. The door to his cell had been unlocked silently during the night. The guards found only chains, and a whisper scratched into the wall. "The crown will fall." Now, Rallick stood in a secret bunker beneath the surface. of a forgotten moon. Around him were weapons, ships, soldiers, all exiles who hated the idea of a human ruler. All bitter, angry, and ready for war. A hooded woman stepped forward. The people follow him. Follow a lie, Rallick spat. They see light. And forget power. What will you do? I'll remind them who really holds strength. Back in the capital, Soltron sensed something was wrong. She stood beside the human as he greeted citizens in the Grand Plaza. Something felt off. Too many ships in the sky. Too many eyes watching from the shadows. She leaned toward him. Today feels different, she whispered. The human nodded. He had felt it too. The crown above him pulsed slowly, not with joy, but with warning, and then the sky exploded. Black ships tore through the clouds. Sirens screamed, energy blasts hit the palace towers. Soldiers ran for cover. Civilians screamed and scattered. A group of loyal guards rushed toward the human. Emergency transport is ready. No, the human said. We don't run. Soltron grabbed his arm. You'll die out here. I'd rather die with them than watch from the shadows. From the lead rebel ship, General Rallick spoke to the people. A giant screen lit up in the sky. This empire was once built by warriors. He shouted, not beggars, not orphans, not humans. Look what we've become. Worshipping weakness. Bowing to a stranger. He pointed at the camera. This human prisoner, he is not your future. He is your end. Then he gave the order. Fire. Missiles launched toward the plaza. The human stepped forward. He raised both arms, not in defense, but to shield a group of alien children nearby. He closed his eyes, but before the missiles could reach, the crown flashed. A golden shield exploded outward, covering the entire plaza. The blasts hit the shield and vanished like smoke. Gasps filled the air. Even Rallick's commanders paused. The crown? It protected them. But not him, Rallick growled. Send in the ground troops. Soldiers in black armor dropped from the sky, firing stun weapons and throwing mine nets. But something unexpected happened. The people fought back. Not just guards, not just soldiers. Farmers grabbed poles, shopkeepers threw stones. Children pulled down attackers with ropes. Lyra, standing beside the human, grabbed a rebel's fallen weapon and aimed it with shaking hands. I'm not afraid of you, she said. The human touched her shoulder gently. No, we fight together. He turned to the crowd. Protect each other. Don't fight for me. Fight for each other. And the people rose. In the sky, rebel ships started to fall. Loyal fighter pilots returned from nearby colonies. The Empire's fleets, long silent, answered the call of the crown. One by one, planets lit up with messages. We are with the crown bearer. The human has our loyalty. Rallick is a traitor. Even alien warlords who once stayed silent now chose sides, and they chose peace. Rallick stood in his command ship, surrounded by silence. His fleet was falling. His ground troops were retreating. The people had not followed him. They had followed a human. A voice behind him spoke. You lost. He turned. The human stood in the doorway, surrounded by light. The crown hovered behind him like a star. How did you get here? Rallick whispered. I followed the path, the human said, walking forward. Same one your people walked. When they believed in something better. You think you're better than us, Rallick snarled. No, the human said softly. I just didn't give up. Later that night, the rebellion ended. Rallick was captured not by guards, but by citizens. He was not harmed. He was brought to trial, not thrown into the dark, because the new ruler had taught them something powerful. Mercy is not weakness. That evening, The city glowed with lanterns. The people danced, sang, and cried in joy. Lyra stood beside the human, her eyes full of wonder. "You did it," she said. "No," he replied. "We did it." Above them, the crown rose into the sky, shining across the stars, for the first time in 1,000 years. The Empire didn't fear the crown. They loved it. The war was over. The people had won not through weapons, but through courage and unity. The rebellion was crushed. General Rallick, once feared across 100 worlds, now sat in silence behind cold cell walls, and the human who had come to their world in chains stood at the center of the grand hall. He was no longer the prisoner, no longer the stranger. Now he was something more. The crown floated gently above his head, glowing in soft gold light, peaceful and warm. The High Council had no more doubts. The ancient rituals were complete. The people had chosen. The crown had chosen. Today, he would be crowned. The Grand Hall of Stars had not been this full in centuries. Delegates from 50 planets stood in silence. Former enemies now stood side by side. Giant screens showed the event across the Empire City's farms, stations in deep space. Even the children in the lowest districts watched from rooftops. Salt Ren walked ahead of the human. Holding the ancient scrolls, Lyra stood beside him, her eyes wide with joy and pride. He wore no armor, no crown of metal or jewels. Simple. Robes clean and strong, like a man who remembered where he came from. The High Elder spoke first. For 300 years, the crown rejected every bloodline. For 300 years, we lost our way. But this human, this outsider, showed us what we forgot. He turned to the crowd. He did not rise through power. He did not demand loyalty. He gave kindness. He offered mercy. He fought not to rule but to protect. The elder turned back to the human. "Do you accept this duty, not for glory, but for the people?" The human looked at the crowd, thousands of alien faces, children waving, old ones crying. Former rebels now watching with open hearts. "I accept," he said quietly. The crown slowly descended. It touched his head, and then light filled the room. The glowing crown burst into colors never seen before. Not just gold, but green, blue, violet, silver spinning like stars in motion. The ceiling cracked open, revealing the sky. Sunlight poured in. Every screen across the galaxy lit up at once. It was not just a ceremony, it was history. It was healing from that moment. He became known not just as ruler, but as the first human emperor of the stars. He did not sit on a throne made of gold. Instead, he sat at a round table beside Saltron, Lyra, and voices from every world. Together, they rewrote the Empire's laws. Slavery was ended. Trade was shared. Food was given to the hungry. Warriors were trained to protect, not conquer. And most of all, the forgotten were heard. Lyra became his voice to the people. She had once been ignored. Now, she was called the Star Speaker. She walked the streets freely, hugged children, and reminded them, he listens to all, even me. Saltren became the new keeper of the crown. She guarded the temple, but also taught others its history, not just the victories, but the mistakes, too, and the human. He walked the city like anyone else. He didn't let guards follow him. He carried water buckets with farmers. He helped build schools in the ruins of the old wars. He told the children, "You don't need to be born royal to be great." Years passed, the empire changed. Worlds that once feared each other became allies. Planets that once burned with rebellion now glowed with music, farming, and life. Old statues were taken down. New ones were built not of soldiers, but of healers, builders, children, and peace. The crown remained above the human's head, but it glowed differently now. Soft, calm, as if it was finally at rest. Because, after centuries of searching, it had finally found what it was looking for. One evening, long after the sun had set, Lyra sat beside the Emperor on a quiet balcony. The stars stretched across the sky. She looked up and smiled. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. The human thought for a moment, then shook his head. "I don't even know if Earth would remember me, but the stars remember you." She whispered, "We all do." He smiled. "That's enough." Far above them, the crown flickered once like a heartbeat, a signal to the stars that the age of power was over, and the age of hope had begun.